Hi everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to talk about more interesting facts about our bacteria. Did you know general purpose antibiotics taken for any bacterial illness can kill both the good and the bad bacteria present in our gut, but it disturbs the ratios. Now interestingly, many antibiotics, even though they may target specific bad bacteria, are not effective on others. Now, that can be a good or a bad thing depending on the results that we want. For example, in other countries, and I would certainly hope it's not in this country, farm animals are fed specific antibiotics not to keep them healthy, but to kill the beneficial bacteria to upset the balance. You see, sugar-eating bacteria are immune to many general-purpose antibiotics, so they multiply and prosper without the competition. Now, when fed on a mainly grain diet, which is virtually all glucose, in-house pen-raised animals quickly turn to fat, ready for sale. Now, that's good business. Fortunately for the animal, they are sold before dietary health and heart and cancer and mental health issues become a problem. Now, excluding the bit about being ready for sale, but the outcome is exactly the same for us humans if we do the same thing. Now, that is when the bulk of our diet is glucose-rich food. That's right. And those of us living on these diets are all heading towards the identical poor health outcomes. Boom. And it turns out it's not rocket science. It's simple as that. And that is also a common reason why people have been known to gain weight when regularly being prescribed antibiotics. As an interesting side note, did you know that the weed killer glyphosate, commonly marketed as Roundup, was initially developed as an antibiotic for us humans? It was found to be far too effective and therefore extremely dangerous, even in microscopic amounts. But interestingly, the company still holds a patent for it as a human antibiotic. Now, on a different subject, consider this. I think it's fascinating and just another connection to our bacteria and our mental well-being. Researchers found that by breeding specific bacteria species and inserting them in the gut of specially bred laboratory mice, overnight they could make the mouse more anxious and fearful or bold and aggressive. And they could reverse that state simply by changing the bacteria species back to the original. They also found that by transplanting a stool sample, a poo sample, remember is full of bacteria, of an anxious human into a calm mouse, the mouse became anxious. And then by transplanting a stool sample of a confident human back into the same mouse, it became calm and confident. Amazing, but very true. And here's one more. Scientists found that by taking a stool sample from an overweight human and transplanting it into a normal weight mouse, yep, you know what I'm going to say, the mouse became overweight. Then by transplanting the stool sample of a slim person into the same mouse, it also became slim again. Incredible, but very true. Now, incredibly, the results are very similar for many of the common 21st century progressive diseases that we've talked about, where a patient can receive the bacteria-laden stool sample of a healthy human and their disease fades away. Now, what the bacteria are doing inside our body is really quite a new science, but they're making some incredible discoveries. Not necessarily the poo, but definitely the different bacteria. Now, just for interest, hard to believe, but most of the bad bacteria are living inside us already. Now, I never knew that, but their numbers are actually controlled by the dominant beneficial bacteria along with the correct environment that they don't like, but our good bacteria happens to love. Hence, the byproducts of the bad guys or toxins have very little effect on us because there is not enough of it. And that is another good reason for all of us to consider a healthy diet, which includes a healthy diet for our bacteria, right? Okay, now here's two common examples of bad bacteria that discover they have an advantage. First is the Candida bacteria, which is the highly aggravating cause of thrush infections, which lots of people know about. Now, with a healthy diet, it exists in small amounts. When it grows out of control, it is usually because we have killed off the dominating good bacteria. That's right. Now, why does it grow out of control? Because it loves a high glucose environment, which comes from us eating too much glucose in our diet. Breads, cakes, sugar, fizzy drinks, etc., and the effect of stress on and in our body, which the thrush bacteria thrives on and our good bacteria simply dies on. Now, because of this high sugar, glucose, fructose, and refined pastry diets consumed in the modern world, millions of humans suffer from ongoing yeast bacteria and fungal growth issues. And that includes most of those tinea, skin, hair, crutch, toes, and nail infections that can simply plague us all. And ironically, it's considered by many of us as something we simply have to put up with. But if you create the perfect place for them to flourish, then like a teenager, they don't want to leave home. And why would they? As they have the perfect place to live. And second is a bacteria called, get this one, Heliobacter pylori. Nice name. Which naturally lives inside us in small numbers. Now, when they are running out of control, they rapidly multiply and gather in our stomach into clusters called ulcers, or stomach ulcers, on the stomach lining and cause us such pain and such grief. They get out of control as a result of long-term stress in our life, which automatically shuts down the hydrochloric acid production in our stomach, which would normally kill them. Now, without that natural acid environment, we create for them the perfect conditions for them to survive and rapidly multiply, hidden inside our stomach. The good news is that all of these types of issues can, in the short term, be controlled by pharmaceutical drugs, and long term, simply by changing the environment our bacteria bugs live in. That's right. And we do that simply by changing the food we eat and de-stressing our lifestyle. Now, how simple is that? And it's all scientifically proven. Okay, let's finish there, and next time we'll talk about how our bacteria can directly influence our mental well-being. Now, this is quite interesting, so I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.